Chapter 61. Cross-Species Reformation. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 61. Cross-Species Reformation. Translator Aristophaneso. Editor Karen_Tang Chumeng looked at Chu Xian with some confusion but nodded. Yes, I know. The people in my program know the basic structure of many kinds of animals. L.RG. Okay, that's great. Can you give me a detailed diagram of the anatomy of a crocodile? I need something like that right now, Chu Xian said expectantly. Okay. No problem, this is pretty simple. I'll draw it out for you later, Tang Chumeng agreed, nodding without asking any questions. Thank you. Thank you so much. Chu Xian said gratefully. He then fetched a fish tank from his store and came back. I don't really have anything to express my gratitude, but these goldfish can serve as a small gift for the grand opening of your store, Chu Xian said, putting the fish tank down on a table to the side. Tang Chumeng looked at the goldfish and shook her head quickly. This is too expensive, I can't accept this. You should take it back. Chu Xian noticed her blushing and guessed she took the gift the wrong way, so he shook his head with a bitter smile and said, Miss Tang, don't take me the wrong way. In the future, I might come and ask you about all kinds of anatomy questions, and I will be embarrassed to bother you every time. Please, accept this for the help I'll ask of you in the future. Tang Chumeng examined him and the goldfish. She hesitated before nodding. Okay, I'll take them. In the future, if you have any anatomy questions you can ask me. I've also done quite a bit of research on ornamental fish. Chu Xian nodded with relief and secretly thought to himself that it was little difficult to interact with this cold, proud goddess. Chu Xian returned to the store and saw Feng Pupu staring blankly, elbows on her knees and head in her hands. He felt that she was super mo and cute. He walked over and rubbed her head. You don't have to always sit and watch people. If you're bored, you can just play with your phone or watch some TV or movies. Feng Pupu lowered her head and nodded. Chu Xian shook his head. This little loli was too cute. At noon, Tang Chumeng came over with a few pieces of paper in hand. Okay. This is the anatomy of a crocodile. Thanks for the goldfish, they're really cute. Thanks. I'm glad you like them. Chu Xian said, accepting the paper happily. He examined the picture and the detailed explanations and couldn't help but exclaim in amazement, no wonder she was the top student from her college overseas. When Tang Chumeng saw how Chu Xian valued the piece of paper, she finally nodded to herself and realized she was overthinking things before. Pupu, can you watch the store by yourself? Chu Xian asked Pupu half an hour later, finally turning away from the detailed drawing. No problem. Feng Pupu nodded solemnly. That's good. Watch the store while Big Brother goes to take care of some things, Chu Xian said, rubbing her head affectionately. He took out some money and handed it to her. This money is for dinner. In the evening, you can eat after you close up or just ask the restaurants to deliver your food here. Here are some phone numbers for the restaurants, just call them and ask for what you want. If you run into any problems, you can just call me. It's too much. Pupu said when she saw how much money he handed her. It's fine. It's just a reward for my well-mannered assistant. Eat more tonight, and eat well. Chu Xian chuckled, putting 50 RMB into her hand. I'll come back tonight. Take good care of the store. Thank you, brother. Pupu said, looking up and nodding. Heh. Chu Xian nodded and walked to the back of the store to the huge moke fish in the basin. After he moved the fish into his car, Chu Xian drove home. Chu Xian carried the 50 kilograms fish for almost 1,000 meters without breaking a sweat. He put it down carefully in his room happily, very satisfied with his level of fitness that he didn't need to maintain or work out for. Looking over the huge moke fish on the ground, Chu Xian took out the papers Tang Qiumeng handed him. Crocodiles weren't fish, and this problem stumped Chu Xian for a long time. They were reptiles, and the biggest kind were saltwater crocodiles that could grow up to 7 meters long, weighing more than 1,600 kilograms. Chu Xian was preparing for a bold attempt, an unimaginable experiment, cross-species remolding. Of course, the process would only be concerned with the appearance and general organ structure, not the genetics. At least, he couldn't do that yet. 2. Tang Qiumeng really was an outstanding student of the sciences. She described and explained everything from the basic characteristics of crocodiles to the structure of the organs and the cells. Chu Xian skipped over the basic characteristics and focused on the details. Chu Xian made a 3D picture of the moke fish appear in his mind. With a simple thought, the fish changed its outer appearance slightly. The skin coloration of the moke fish and regular crocodiles was already quite similar, and their mouths were somewhat alike. Very soon, the fish transformed into a lifelike crocodile. Other than a few differences in the leg structure, almost every other part was identical. Even an expert wouldn't have been able to tell that this was actually a fish. The remolding has just begun. Chu Xian thought. The outside transformation was just the start. Similarity in appearance alone was useless, the moke fish still used gills to breathe and would die quickly out of water. Everyone knew that creatures on land pretty much used lungs to breathe while most fish used gills. Only a handful of fish species could live on land, these were lungfish and could breathe air with a modified bladder. Chu Xian did some research on the basic principles that allowed these fish to breathe out of water, and guided by those thoughts, he focused on the moke fish and gradually remolded its gills according to the structure of the lungfish. After finishing with the gills, Chu Xian turned his attention to the inner anatomy. The reason why the crocodile was so fearsome was largely due to its inner structure, and Chu Xian wanted to remold the fish into a capable and fierce beast. Of course, as the base creature was still a fish, Chu Xian couldn't transform the fish directly into a reptile, but he could strengthen it as much as possible. The arrangement of the bones, circulatory system, locations of organs and the entire digestive tract all needed to be remolded and shifted. According to the detailed paper Tang Qiumeng gave him, Chu Xian remolded all the inner workings of the moke fish to copy the crocodile as closely as possible. Chapter 62. Mo Crocodile. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 62. Mo Crocodile. Translator. Aristophaneso editor. Karen _ because of the difference in anatomy, Chu Xian didn't think he could remold the Mo fish into a crocodile entirely and was instead aiming for 50% similarity. For 2 hours, Chu Xian kept up his experimentation. He was obviously concerned that the creature would die after he finished remolding. Luckily, he did a lot of preparatory work and had some basic knowledge of the anatomy of animals. Confirm. Finally, after 3 long hours, Chu Xian was satisfied with his work and excitedly announced his completion by confirming with the system. In a flash, the Mo fish in the basin transformed completely into a crocodile shape. With the remolding done, Chu Xian inspected the status. Mo Crocodile. Level 14. Combat Power. 200, Ability. Anesthesia. This. Chu Xian exclaimed with wide eyes, an astonished expression spreading across his face. The name changed. Chu Xian wondered with excitement. The system could identify the creature's species and abilities, and under normal circumstances, remolding only modified appearances, keeping the fundamental species of the creature unaltered. This time, he actually managed to completely alter the species. Chu Xian's experiment succeeded, and the cross-species remolding worked. And this is only a remolding of the basic structure. Simply by modifying some organs and bone structures, I can change a fish into a different existing species, but if I remold the genes, I can create a completely new species altogether. I can even add artificial organs and structures to strengthen the creature and lengthen its life. Chu Xian became more and more excited as he imagined all the possibilities and fantasized about the possibility of becoming a mythical creator. But that's still far in the future. For now, I just need to level up, Chu Xian thought with a smile, calming down slightly. He looked at the meter-long Mo crocodile. Chu Xian tried his best to compress the structures and muscles, making its body thicker and more similar to a crocodile. Compared to a crocodile, the teeth in the fish were a little smaller, but they'd be able to kill normal prey without a problem. Its combat power reached 200 and was higher than before the remolding, even after accounting for the fact that it was downgraded one level. The anesthesia ability also increased the Mo crocodile's lethality, while complementing and alleviating any problem with its biting force. Chu Xian touched its hard mouth and tested its biting force with a metal cup from the bedside cupboard. It crushed the cup without any resistance. Not bad, the combat power of the Mo crocodile can easily kill an adult human. Even if it can't kill in one bite, it'll stun with its anesthesia to prepare for another bite. Now I don't have to worry about guarding the fish farm. Chu Xian smiled to himself and examined the one-time upgraded control ability. The upgraded control could control a creature without limit, and anything it saw could also be viewed by Chu Xian. It was in many ways like having another self. The fish farm was his base, and he needed to guard it with his powers, so the Mo crocodile was the best choice. Chu Xian used the control ability on the Mo crocodile, and as soon as he used it, a pet column appeared beside his stats. He smiled at how game-like everything was. After testing the speed and reactions of the Mo crocodile, Chu Xian nodded in satisfaction. After checking the time, Chu Xian found a restaurant to eat dinner before driving back to the store. After all, Feng Pupu was still a child, and today was her first day at work. He wasn't without worry. When he reached the store, Chu Xian saw Feng Pupu standing in front of the fish tank looking at the goldfish, and he walked over with a smile. Pupu, how many fish did you sell? 20.3, Pupu said, turning around at Chu Xian's voice. She smiled and ran over to the cash register. Brother, someone paid in cash. N. Chu Xian took the cash and nodded, but when he saw 30.5 RMB among the bigger bills, he shook his head slightly. He took it out and said, "You don't have to return the money I gave you. This is money for your meals, and if you can't spend it all, just buy some snacks." "Oh right, let me give you the entire month's food money first." Chu Xian took out 1,500 RMB and handed her the bills. Feng Pupu's stunned expression was very cute. She rubbed her head as Chu Xian said, "Take this. This is for your meals in the future, eat more every day, eat better." "Thank you, big brother." Feng Pupu lowered her head, crying softly. Little sister, don't cry, don't cry. Just work hard here with brother and I won't treat you badly, Chu Xian said, patting her back. "Thank you, big brother. You really are kind to me." Feng Pupu said, looking up at him with red eyes filled with gratefulness. Your big brother is a good boss, so don't cry." Chu Xian looked at her. Who knew whether Chu Xian thought she was cute and wanted to take care of her or if he really was a good boss. At 9 p.m., Chu Xian closed up shop and said to Feng Pupu, "Pupu, where do you live? Let me drive you back." "No need, no need." Feng Pupu waved her hand hurriedly. "You don't need to trouble yourself, I don't live far away. It won't take me very long to bus. It's no trouble. If it's not far, just let me drive you. It's much faster for me to take you home." Chu Xian said, secretly thinking that it wasn't good to let a lowly walk alone at night. He dragged her along to the parking lot on Guwu Street. "By the way, Pupu, what does your grandfather do?" Chu Xian asked in the car as he drove according to her directions. My grandpa is a fisherman. He catches fish and sells them to a shop owner." Feng Pupu sat in the car timidly, looking around curiously. Oh. A fisherman. Chu Xian nodded with some surprise. Feng Pupu lived in an old neighborhood near the fish market. People who lived in this neighborhood were mostly workers who worked on the sea coast and on fish farms. The work environment was often not very good. Chapter 63. Construction finished. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 63. Construction finished. Translator Aristofaniso editor. Karen_Feng Pupu hugged her uniform and clutched the bills Chu Xian handed her tightly, walking mechanically in a stunned state. She and her grandfather rented 2 rooms in a 4-room apartment. Since the place was old, the rent wasn't very expensive. She pushed open the door and saw her grandfather sitting on a stool reading a newspaper with an air of boredom. When he heard her come in, he stood up immediately and greeted her. "Pupu, you're back. How was your first day? What is that you're holding?" "It was very good, Grandpa. The boss is super nice. This is the uniform he bought for me." Feng Pupu walked over. She didn't have much, but her grandfather always cared for her. "And the boss also gave me money for a month's worth of meals." Feng Pupu showed her grandpa the money excitedly. "This." Grandpa Feng exclaimed with astonishment, looking from the big stack of bills to the uniform she carried. "This boss really is a good person. Pupu, what did you do today? Are you tired?" "No, it wasn't tiring at all," Feng Pupu said, shaking her head. "I only have to deal with money from customer purchases. Also, in order to manage all the transactions, the boss also got me a cell phone. He said if I got bored, I could just play with the phone and watch the store. You are really lucky, Pupu, to meet such a nice boss. You have to work hard." Grandpa Feng nodded happily, patting her head and reminding her not to be lazy. Feng Pupu nodded. She thought about how her boss also liked patting her head and felt warmth in her heart like he was already part of her family. The next day, Chu Xian spent the morning dealing with online orders. His popularity on Weibo was so high that he received more than 10 orders every day. Now, he already had 200 customer orders but he hadn't shipped any of them yet. When noon came, Chu Xian received a call from Mr. Li from the renovation company and headed over to the fish farm. On the way to Feng Tai Lake, he spotted a unique fish farm up ahead, surrounded by thick, sturdy walls, very different from all the other farms in the area. He got out of the car and entered the building through the door decorated with a fish, passing under the shop sign, "Ornamental Fish of Paradise." The interior had a new feeling to it, with the nice floorboards blending seamlessly with the soothing wallpaper and the walls decorated with different images of ornamental fish. Along the edges of the store were 8 big aquariums, all facing the center of the store. Decorating the center were 3 comfortable-looking sofas with an accompanying tea table and tea sets, making it hard to imagine this was all a fish farm. "Boss, what do you think? Everything is finished. Is there anything you aren't satisfied with?" Mr. Li said, walking up to Chu Xian after he walked through the door. Chu Xian looked around, gesturing for Mr. Li to wait as he wandered throughout the store. Pushing open the door to the inner half of the fish farm, Chu Xian saw the 440-square-meter luxury fish farms covered in tiles. The roof had transparent planes of glass in places that would let in sunshine. Chu Xian nodded with satisfaction. Peeking into the living space, he examined the bed, closet and all the other furniture briefly. It was a comfortable-looking room. "Good. I am very satisfied," Chu Xian said. "That's great. If you need any other renovations in the future, feel free to contact us," Mr. Li said happily. "Sure." The whole renovation cost about 600,000 RMB, but everything inside was of the highest quality. After paying the bill, Chu Xian lounged on the sofa with a sigh of contentment, looking around with a smile. After a while, Chu Xian got up and brought the reformed Mo crocodile and some new goldfish back to the shop. He filled one of the fish ponds with water and the Mo crocodile dived in happily. Chu Xian smiled, making the Mo crocodile swim over to him. He rubbed its nose and patted its mouth, saying, "In the future, you'll guard your home. If someone comes in, just bite him." The Mo crocodile nodded as if understanding, in a startling display of intelligence. Tisk, tsk. It really feels like the Mo croc's intelligence is increasing. Is it because of the power-up control? Chu Xian mused. With all this done, Chu Xian drove over to the fish market and bought over 2,000 goldfish, including big adults and small newborns. After 3 trips to transport all the goldfish, Chu Xian organized the adult goldfish into 2 ponds, and the smaller ones into the others. I just need to remold all these goldfish, then the problem of supply will be solved. Even though the varieties I'll breed will be slightly different, they'll still be acceptable to my customers. Chu Xian checked the time, then began his remolding. After remolding goldfish hundreds of times, Chu Xian became quite good at it. It only took him 3 minutes to finish with 1 goldfish. Over 2,000 goldfish should take more than 6,000 minutes, equivalent to about 100 hours. In the span of 2 days, Chu Xian remolded every single goldfish. The approximately 1,500 adult goldfish were ready to be sold, and the 700 or so babies were all reformed as a mask for his real operation. After remolding all the goldfish, Chu Xian started shipping out the orders. The online orders already accumulated up to 4 million RMB of deposits. Author's note. I saw someone asking how to ship live fish, speechless, just do some research online. Of course, he was the only one who knew how many goldfish had been pre-ordered, and he definitely wasn't about to spread the information. Rarity determined the price, and if people knew how many he could sell, that would definitely lower his selling price and also attract unwelcome attention. This was also why he didn't sell on Taobao. He wanted to keep his information secret. After bustling around the whole day, Chu Xian shipped off all the goldfish, and the 4 million plus RMB entered his bank account. More than 4 million RMB of profit. Chu Xian smiled to himself. This was only the beginning. He hadn't even touched the bigger ornamental fish market, but now that the fish farm base was completed, he could begin expanding his market. Chapter 64. Homecoming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 64. Homecoming. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen _ the world market for ornamental fish was about 5 billion USD, and the number was climbing by at least 10% every year as ordinary families began to discover the ornamental fish culture. Chu Xian was very confident in the future of ornamental fish, in addition to being confident in his remolding ability. Maybe one day, he could even directly cultivate and raise precious goldfish through the system without relying on manual remolding. When that day came, his ornamental fish would be sold worldwide, and he wouldn't have to spend intense, tiring sessions just to meet customer demand. After numerous busy days dealing with online orders, Chu Xian received a call from his parents. Their bustling voices and good-natured urging and nagging put a speechless smile on his face, warming his heart. "Poo-poo, I won't be here tomorrow. I'm going home for a bit. I'll restock 100 or so goldfish, and you can just watch the store while I'm gone. If there are any problems, just call." Chu Xian instructed Feng Poo-poo as she sat on a little chair with a book in hand. The child had been spending days staring blankly at the fish, and when Chu Xian finally told her she could just play on her phone or borrow some books to read, she brought a stack of books over the next day, much to Chu Xian's amusement. "Oh. Big brother is going home," Poo-poo said with slight disappointment. "Don't worry, brother, you can count on me. No problem." Chu Xian nodded with a smile. Afterwards, Chu Xian rang up Xiao Ying for dinner. Of course, Chu Xian used the excuse of the last meeting before a temporary parting to get a tussle in bed. Xiao Ying's problems at school were all solved, but she couldn't leave school otherwise Chu Xian would drag her to meet his parents and show off his pretty girlfriend to people from nearby villages. Although he couldn't show off his beautiful girlfriend, he could still show off his car. Chu Xian's home was founded along the coast of Yangtze River and it took 2 hours by train or 4 by car to get there. 4 hours wasn't too far, and even if it were 6 or 7 hours, Chu Xian would still drive not because he wanted to torture himself, but for the happy feeling of showing off. Maybe this was the honor and glory of being a little loser. On the road, tapping his wheel to the beat of the music, Chu Xian reflected on his past years with a small smile. The last time he went home for Chinese New Year he felt completely defeated, and he was often ashamed to meet family and friends. Although he was a graduate of an average university and could count as an educated person in the village, he was muddling his way through life so badly that he couldn't bear telling anyone. I want to fly high with the sun by my side. The world is waiting for my hand. Chu Xian sang along happily to the music, admiring the scenery of the river along the highway in a great mood. Chu Xian's village was considered part of Yinan City and was a little under 2.5 kilometers away from Changjiang River. When he passed the riverside road to get home, it was already in the afternoon. The June weather was heating up and people in the village enjoyed walking outside in the cool of the trees along the road. With a thin mat covering the ground, some people sat and played cards or Chinese chess, and some played music or struck up conversations. The whole atmosphere was bustling and communal. Chu Xian's parents knew he would arrive that afternoon and had been waiting for him at the crossroads. Beside them was a similar-looking woman in her late 20s, holding a baby. Chu Xian's elder sister was married and her child was almost 2 years old this year. Most people in the village wanted at least 2 children, and the best combination would be 1 boy and 1 girl. His sister and his sister's husband's family didn't have a great relationship, so after Chu Xian's brother-in-law went to work, she usually stayed at the Chu house, so today she accompanied her parents to wait for her brother's arrival. Chu Xian drove up to the crossing and saw his parents and sisters chatting happily with some other people. He recognized all the familiar faces. As he drove over, the sound of his car turned many heads, and a young man pointed out the black Rover to his wife and said in admiration, "This car is at least 1 or 2 million RMB. So expensive. You could use that money to buy a decent house in the city," a middle-aged woman said with astonishment. "If I had the money to buy such an expensive car, I would rather buy a house." He, they have money. If they can drive this car, who knows, they might live in a villa. A middle-aged man laughed, turning to Chu Xian's father with a teasing look. "Didn't you say your son is making money? In the future, make him bring back a car like this, haha. That'd be impressive." I think he can just forget about this kind of car. "It's already good if he can buy a house in the city," Chu Xian's old man said, shaking his head. Although his son told him he was making some money, he still couldn't imagine his son buying this kind of car. "Mom, Dad. Sis." Chu Xian called out, his familiar figure stepping out of the luxury car. Everyone was stunned, and all the surrounding people looked over in astonishment. "Xiao Xian, you're back. Why did you drive? Where did you get this car?" Chu Xian's father stood up and called out with surprise. "I bought it." Chu Xian smiled as he fished out a carton of cigarettes from his car. "I bought the thing a couple days ago. Come, uncles, grandpas, let's smoke." As he spoke, Chu Xian opened the carton and handed out a pack of cigarettes to each person. The people received the packs with surprised and astonished expressions. "Chonghua, TSK. It's the 65 RMB per pack soft Chonghua." One of the young men exclaimed. 2, the old uncles who smoked for years looked from the pack to the car and turned to Chu Xian's father and exclaimed, "Old Chu, your son didn't just make a bit. Old codger, you can enjoy a happy life from now on." Chu Xian smiled and said to his family, "Mom, Dad. Sis. Let's go home first, hop in. Xiao Xian, how much did the car cost? Chu Xian's father asked when he recovered from the shock, looking at his son with pride and excitement. Not expensive, just 2 million RMB, Chu Xian said calmly, his face covered with a smile. This child. Why did you spend so much on a car? You haven't even bought a house yet, why did you buy a car first? His mother interjected from the side with some heartache. She rubbed the car, 2 million RMB. They hadn't seen that much money their whole lives. Hee, there's no problem. I can buy a house anytime I want, I just haven't decided where I'm going to live yet. Let's go. Let's go home. Good, good. Good son. Chu Xian's father said excitedly, patting his son's shoulder before getting in the car. Chapter 65. Dried Fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 65. Dried Fish. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen _ how impressive. Old Chu's boy has already become a successful man. 1 million RMB car. Nobody said otherwise. I guess the city colleges really are impressive. I'm going to make sure my kid studies hard. I can't let him do whatever he wants anymore. If he won't study, I'll just beat him up. Yes, yes. You have to make your kids read books and study if you want them to be better than the other kids. Remember when Chu Xian was young, he was beaten by his father so hard that he didn't dare come home even in the middle of the night. I wonder if he has a girlfriend. My daughter is not bad. Don't even think about it. It's not that I'm judging you, but just look at your daughter, she's almost 100 kilograms. And you still dare to dream. Chu Xian knew nothing of this conversation, and if he did, he wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Chu family all sat in the car, impressed by the refrigerator and television, exchanging looks of astonishment and joy. Old man Chu took out a cigarette and put it to his nose, inhaling deeply before lighting it. Chu Xian hid a grin as he watched his father. The car drove up to the gate of their house and Chu Xian's mom hopped off to open the gate, letting the car in. They all got off the car and Chu Xian opened up the trunk. It was packed full with good liquor for his father, clothes and jewelry for his mother, jewelry and makeup for his sister, and some toys for his niece. His whole family was in a festive mood, and smiles covered all their faces. Finally, Chu Xian took out a fish tank with some small goldfish inside, showing it to his parents. Mom, Dad, these are the goldfish I sell. Aren't they nice? I want. A light voice yelled, and small hands reached out to take it. His niece's big eyes stared cutely at the goldfish in the tank. Xiren. Say hi to your uncle. Chu Xian said, turning towards his niece, kneeling and holding the fish tank to her eye level. The little girl still couldn't speak clearly and yelled randomly with extended hands. Xiao Xian, these are the goldfish you sell. They're beautiful. How much? Chu Li said, taking the fish tank and holding it in front of Xiren so she could look at the fish. 3,000 each. Chu Xian replied with a smile. How much? 3,000 each. Why is it so expensive? Chu Li raised her head and asked in astonishment. Their parents peeked over curiously when they heard the price, looking at the small fish in the tank. All of them are very precious kinds that I cultivated myself, Chu Xian said, giving his cover. Business is very good. I sold more than 1,000 online. More than 1,000. More than 1,000 is more than 3 million. Holy sh*t, there really are many rich people. Chu Xian laughed. Business is very good. Soon, I'll be ready to sell large ornamental fish, and those are worth more than 1 million each. Huh, good kid. Pretty good, pretty good. I won't understand even if you explain it to me. Just do well and that's good enough for me. Old man Chu patted Chu Xian's shoulder happily. Hee. Relax, Dad. All you need to do from now on is just enjoy your life. If you want to go to the city, we can buy a house there too. Chu Xian said with a smile. What city? We've already lived here for so long, there's no need to move anymore. We won't be able to adapt anyway. His mom said with a smile. Chu Xian chuckled and turned to his sister. Sis, you can ask brother.in.law to come back. I can give you some money and you guys can open up a shop here. There's no need to go out and work for other people. Okay. I'll call him soon. Chu Li replied, full of joy. Chu Xian nodded. Now that he had money, the first thing he would do was allow his family to live a better life. It was only after he did this that he could truly be a successful man. Xiao Xian, you haven't eaten, right? Are you hungry? I'll go get some food. Chu Xian's mom asked. Not yet. Chu Xian nodded. Buy a lot. I'm going to have some drinks with my son. Chu Xian's father added. You already drank at noon. Chu Xian's mother glared but didn't refuse and left to get food. Haha. I'm happy. We should drink. I'll call your uncle over and have him bring some dried fish. Old man Chu said happily, standing up and heading over to the uncle's house. Chu Xian's uncle lived next door. Brother, come out. Chu Xian's father said, pushing open the door and yelling inside. Coming. I was watching TV. A man came out and looked over at Chu Xian. Hey, Xiao Xian is here. Hello, uncle, Chu Xian greeted, offering a cigarette. This was old man Chu's younger brother, Chu Ming. Brother, bring over some of your dried fish. I'm making some food for Xiao Xian, Chu Xian's father said, pointing at the dried fish hanging on a hook. Let me cook. *TTY cook, you'll waste my fish. Chu Ming said, taking down some of the fish. Come over. Let's drink. Chu Xian's old man said. When Chu Ming saw the fancy car in the yard, his eyes opened in astonishment. Old man Chu smiled proudly and bragged about how the car was 2 million RMB and that his son was rich. He took out an expensive bottle of alcohol to finish off with his brother. Chu Ming looked over at Chu Xian with astonishment and slapped his shoulder. Kid, you are the pride of our Chu family. Chu Xian smiled. His uncle had 3 girls and had already given up on having a son, so his uncle and aunt treated him like their own son ever since he was young. The 2 families got along very well, and now that the 3 daughters married into other families, the 2 brothers were closer than ever and often ate together. Chu Ming took the dried fish to the kitchen, and Chu Xian couldn't help but salivate at the thought of his uncle's food. Chu Ming's cooking was famous throughout the village, and people often paid him to cook at big events. The taste of his fish was something Chu Xian would never forget, and each year he earned quite a bit by selling his dried fish in the city. He even had some regular customers who ordered fish from him. Soon, Chu Xian's mother brought over some food from a restaurant and Chu Ming finished preparing 2 dishes, one stir-fried and the other steamed. Chu Xian's father opened up a bottle and started to drink happily. Come. Cheers. Chu Xian's father raised his glass. Xiao Xian is successful now. Our lives will get better and better, Chu Ming said, raising his glass happily. Finishing off his glass, Chu Xian took a piece of dried fish. The fish was a special numbing kind of spicy, had an amazing chewy texture and superb taste, much better than any of those expensive dishes at Gu Dao recipe. Uncle, your dried fish is amazing as usual. Of course. I've already spent half my life making these. It's too bad we have to do all these artificial procedures to the fish, compromising the nutrition and taste. Chapter 66. Fishing in the night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 66. Fishing in the Night Translator. Aristofaniso Editor. Karen_natural dried fish. The speaker didn't pay much attention to his words, but his listener did. 1. Dried fish's primary characteristic was actually its long shelf life, and the texture and taste were only secondary, despite how delicious it was. It was just like dried meat, filling the whole mouth with heavenly flavors, lingering in the mouth long after being swallowed. But the dried fish only kept part of its original nutrients and lost all the rest, and in the process of drying, the fish was also exposed to bacteria, thus it normally wasn't served in large restaurants. But Chu Ming's dried fish, Chu Xian thought with confidence, was definitely just as delicious as any shark fin or abalone, and maybe even better. Uncle, is a natural dried fish the kind of fish that has high density and little water content in its body? Chu Xian asked with an air of casual curiosity. I just said it randomly. I've never heard of any kind of fish like this. Chu Ming replied with a laugh. I've seen something like this before. Some fish have really compact meat, and other than their belly, their whole body doesn't have much water. Will dried fish made from this type of fish be tasty? Of course. If I could steam this kind of fish and add my spices, none of the taste or nutrition would be lost and it would definitely match up to any rare delicacy in the whole world. I've never heard of this kind of fish though, can you get me some? Chu Ming said. It's a type of saltwater fish. There might be some in the Yangtze River, but it's very rare. Oh. It really exists. I wonder if I'll have a chance to try some. Chu Ming said with an expectant look. Chu Xian smiled silently and drank deeply from his cup. The trio polished off the bottle, and all the alcohol from the morning and afternoon knocked out old man Chu. Chu Xian also collapsed in weariness after driving the whole morning. When he woke up from his nap, the sun had set. Chu Xian got up and played with his niece for a little, then ate dinner and left the house with a fishing rod. During the summer in his hometown, the main pastime at night was fishing, and every year during this season, many middle-aged and older men would fish from the river bank. Chu Xian went to the river during the night many times and his family had no worries. After driving 10 minutes by car, he arrived at the river. The river supported generations of families stretching back to time immemorial. Every year and day, there were always fishermen coming to the river, fishing for their lives and livelihood. Even now, when men no longer came to satisfy basic needs, the river was still home, and the water still carried the lifeblood of the land, a constant flow and witness to the lives of men. At the bank, Chu Xian looked out at the different enthusiasts and lovers of fish. Their fuzzy silhouettes were like ephemeral glimpses of life, shrouded in the dull glow of flashlights reflecting off the water, revealing dreamy images of the flowing water and the men who accompanied it. Chu Xian joined the fishermen and women with flashlight and fishing rod in hand. He had more than 10 people in his immediate vicinity, all settled in their separate positions. Chu Xian came up to the water and shone his flashlight into the water. The size of the Yangtze stretching through Chu Xian's hometown was 3 to 4 kilometers wide and very deep, up to 70 or 80 meters in the center. The area had a good amount of fish, largely undisturbed by the occasional cargo ship passing through. On lucky days, fishermen could catch a fish weighing 5 or 6 kg or even heavier. When Chu Xian was still in high school, someone in the village caught a Chinese sturgeon that weighed more than 50 kilograms and was longer than a meter, but as a first-class national protected animal, it could only be set free. Chinese sturgeons were increasingly rare, and poachers often tried to catch and sell these sturgeons using any method possible to make huge profits, but in recent years, there had been an increase in farm supply. Chu Xian took out the fishing rod, and without preparing any bait, swung it into the water. Great-grandfather Chu is fishing, volunteers take the bait. Chu Xian laughed. Fishing in the Yangtze River challenged a person's skill. You first needed to make a nest to attract fish in the wild river, but Chu Xian didn't even make one and was like a blind cat catching a dead rat. But he was even stronger than a blind cat, he didn't even put bait on his hook. Control. Chu Xian thought in his heart. The ability was already level 17, and he could control all the fish within 17 meters. A god's eye view appeared, and he willed in his mind and looked out at the water in front of him. The fish in Yangtze River were mainly carps, crucians and grass carps. Wild carps and grass carps were way more expensive than farmed ones and tasted much better as well. Within the 17 meters of his vision, he could see 3 carps over 2.5 kilograms and many smaller grass carps. There are less fish each year. Chu Xian saw the fish and cursed. The pollution of the environment and overfishing caused the fish population to decline in the Yangtze River. His hometown already banned large-scale fishing 2 years ago. In the years when he was a freshman in college, some factories opened on the other side of the river, and their garbage dumping into the river almost wiped out the entire fish population in the area. Chu Xian moved his mind and a carp swung out its tail and swam over to the hook. It willingly opened its mouth and hooked itself onto it. Ah, this is too cruel. Chu Xian laughed as he caught the carp easily. Chu Xian looked at the over 2 kilograms wild carp and smiled before putting it in a fishing net and swinging the hook out again. His hometown sold wild carps at 15 RMB per half kg. In a big city, they could be sold at 30 to 40 per half kg. Using the same method, Chu Xian caught another carp easily, laughing cheerfully. That carp already escaped my area of control. If I knew it would do that, I would have just controlled it. Chu Xian looked at the last carp disappearing out of sight and he touched his head speechlessly before taking the rod and walking away. Chu Xian walked to the right to a weeded place with no people. Turning off his flashlight, Chu Xian disappeared completely into the dark, but with his control ability, he could see all the creatures clearly within 17 meters. Chu Xian shook his head speechlessly at the small fish in his area of control and continued walking to the right. What the f***? What is this? In his control view, a large fish appeared for a moment before flashing out of sight. Chinese sturgeon, I saw a Chinese sturgeon. Wow, I can't believe this big guy is in this area. How rare. Chu Xian exclaimed in his heart. It was too bad that it disappeared while he was stunned. If he reacted faster and controlled it, although he couldn't take it home, he could still let it swim to the bank so he could take a closer look at it. After all, he hadn't seen a wild Chinese sturgeon many times in his life. What the fuck? This is... Suddenly, at this moment Chu Xian's heart jumped, and he stared wide-eyed at the river. Chapter 67. Sunken Boat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 67. Sunken Boat. Translator. Aristofaniso. Editor. Karen_F***** me. Japanese grenadier anchovy. So many huge grenadier anchovies. Chu Xian exclaimed, wide-eyed. Ednel.co. The Coelia nasus, or the Japanese grenadier anchovy, was a migrating fish considered among the so-called for fresh fish of the Yangtze, along with the puffer fish, the reef shad, and the catfish. The grenadier anchovy was slim and thin like a silver, white knife and had many small bones but incredibly soft meat. The taste was delicious, fat but not greasy. 1. The grenadier anchovy was normally around 18 to 25 centimeters long and weighed 10 to 20 grams. The price varied a lot with weight, and it was usually at least 2,000 to 4,000 RMB per half kilo. In his control view, there were a dozen grenadier anchovies swimming around, and a few of them were quite big. Chinese sturgeons and grenadier anchovies. This place is weird, huh? Chu Xian thought to himself as he maintained his control ability on the fish, looking around thoughtfully. Both fish were rare and incredibly precious, and nobody from his or any of the surrounding villages had found any grenadier anchovies for some years now. Chu Xian hesitated and looked around before finally taking off his clothes and stepping into the river. Transform. Chu Xian thought as his body disappeared and was replaced by a brief silhouette of a black monster before it splashed and disappeared deeper into the water. Under his control, the dozen grenadier anchovies swam by his side and followed him deeper into the lake. Horseballs, too, the water smells so bad. This pollution. Chu Xian thought as he breathed in the oxygen from the river, irritated at the mud and filth. Pushing away the unhappiness in his heart, Chu Xian darted forward. As he pierced deeper into the river, he saw more and more fish and even encountered gigantic carp and chub, weighing up to 15 kilograms. Regardless, he ignored these fish and went deeper, searching for the grenadier anchovies and sturgeons. 20 minutes in, Chu Xian shook his tail speechlessly. I guess I was just lucky earlier. Chu Xian thought with disappointment before loosening his control on the grenadier anchovies and setting them free. The freed anchovies all darted away from Chu Xian, and all of them swam in the same direction. They're all heading to the same place. Chu Xian thought excitedly and followed, maintaining a 15-meter distance. The anchovies had no idea that a huge monster was stalking them as they dived deeper into the river. Chu Xian followed curiously, and a couple minutes later, his stunned fish eyes opened wide and his heart pumped loudly in his body. A sunken boat. Chu Xian thought, baring his ferocious teeth in wide-mouthed astonishment, staring in stunned amazement at the rotting boat perched on the river bottom surrounded by swimming sturgeons and grenadier anchovies. 3. I've hit the jackpot. Jackpot. Chu Xian thought to himself gleefully, whipping his tail and darting towards the boat. The anchovies and the sturgeons sensed the menacing presence coming for them and swam away furiously. Control. Control. Chu Xian willed, using his ability as soon as his range covered the anchovies and sturgeons, allowing him to control them all. To the people of China, the Yangtze was as old as time and had witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties and civilizations. Countless boats had traversed its waters, and many met tragic ends. Many big events resulted in thousands of casualties even as recent as the 1940s. Chu Xian gathered the anchovies and sturgeons before swimming towards the boat, examining it with curiosity. The whole boat was rotten, and the wood gave a little when Chu Xian brushed against it gently. Swimming around the whole length, Chu Xian estimated that the boat was around 20 meters long, but he couldn't guess what era the design was from. Is there treasure here? Chu Xian thought as he swam through a hole leading into the rest of the ship. Inside, Chu Xian smiled to himself and gathered up more grenadier anchovies. The space in the boat wasn't big, and half of it had long been buried by mud, but the tops of some chests were still visible. Pine. Chu Xian admired his claws as they teared apart the wooden chests. Cloth and silk. Chu Xian thought, looking at the black, rotted cloth with some disappointment. He opened the other chests and discovered the same thing except for one chest that was red. This can't be. Is this just a normal boat? Chu Xian thought with disappointment as he started digging with his tail. Suddenly, Chu Xian felt his tail hit something hard, and he excitedly gripped it and dragged it out of the mud. Chu Xian swore in his mind, flinching and throwing the thing away. Human bones, me, for, Chu Xian thought with resentment, and turning away, he saw something on the arm bone. He swam over and hesitated for a second. A jade bracelet. Chu Xian hesitated before taking the bracelet. Of course, he wanted to sell it, not wear it. 5. A sunken boat should have more treasure than a jade bracelet. It should be filled with gold and silver and all kinds of chinaware, each worth a couple million. Chu Xian kept digging with his tail. Something else. After about 5 minutes of digging, he felt another hard object with his tail. This. He pulled out a wooden box around the size of a soccer ball. The wood was very hard and filled Chu Xian with hope, but he didn't open it right away and kept digging. Half an hour passed. Chu Xian found 3 more boxes in total, one of them was rectangular and the other 2 were cubes. 6. Chu Xian stopped digging because it was getting late. He headed back to the shore with the grenadier anchovies and the Chinese sturgeon. After exiting the water quietly, Chu Xian put on his clothes. After examining the huge Chinese sturgeon curiously, he rubbed its head and let it go. Chapter 68. Naturally Made Dried Fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 68. Naturally Made Dried Fish. Translator Aristofaniso Editor. Karen After a moment's thought, Chu Xian made the decision to transform back into a fish and eat all the carps he caught, using the net instead for the grenadier anchovies. Then, back in human form, he carried the net and 3 chests back to his car. The few people in the area glanced at the wooden chests curiously but didn't approach. Inside his car, he opened the boxes expectantly, starting with the longer, rectangular one. Paper. What a pity. Chu Xian thought, shaking his head speechlessly. The paper had long been soaked with water and turned into messy lumps. Putting that chest aside, he opened one of the square ones. Cloth. Why is everything cloth or paper? Did this guy run a silk business or something? Chu Xian thought to himself, shaking his head with disappointment before turning to the final box. Yes. The best for last. Chu Xian finally smiled. The beautiful, fish-shaped object was made of white jade with a red belly and 2 black eyes. The whole piece was 2 palms wide and was obviously a top-grade art piece. Chu Xian polished it and examined it in every direction affectionately before putting it on his dashboard. It would be a nice decoration. Although he didn't find any treasure in the wreck, he wasn't too disappointed. That would be too unrealistic, and even when it came to wrecks, the best ones were usually in the sea. Even the chances of coming across a wreck in the sea were too low. Finished with the boxes, he picked up the grenadier anchovies and smiled before willing in his heart, shrinking the 20 centimeters anchovy quickly. Now it didn't look like an anchovy at all, but rather, it looked like a small unknown fish. The reformed anchovy was only 7 to 8 cm, but its entire body was very tough. Shrinking the meat entirely will kill them, Chu Xian thought, shaking his head with a frown. That's right, he was trying to shrink fish meat to make some naturally dried fish. The water was sucked out and the density increased, the entire fish looked hard and tough like it died a long time ago. Let's see. Let's see if Uncle can cook this and make it tasty. Chu Xian dried all the grenadier anchovy this way, finishing off the 50-some anchovies he caught. After remolding, the total weight of the entire batch was only about 2.5 kilograms. Back home, Chu Xian walked into the living room where his family was watching TV. He shouted with an air of surprise, "Mom, Dad, I caught some weird fish, the kind I was talking about this afternoon." What? What did you tell your uncle? Chu Xian's father asked, looking up with confusion. Chu Xian's mouth twitched. After his father got drunk and fell asleep, he forgot everything. The naturally dried fish. Take a look. Chu Xian said, taking out a fish and showing it to them. This fish is so hard. Chu Xian's father picked out a small fish and looked it over. He squeezed it, put it up to his nose and smelled it. It doesn't smell like a fish that died a long time ago. This is the naturally dried fish I mentioned today. This kind of fish basically doesn't have any water in its meat and it's all collected in its stomach. Why are they all dead? Mom, this kind of fish doesn't have water in its meat so it'll die as soon as it leaves the water, but it's still edible. Oh. She answered, accepting his explanation. Chu Xian's father stood up and said, let's give them to your uncle for him to handle so we can try them tomorrow. Bro. Are you asleep? If you're awake, open the door. Chu Xian's father yelled at Chu Ming's house next door, leaning out of his window. Not yet. What is it? Come over. Chu Ming's voice floated over. Chu Xian and his father went over and gave Chu Ming the fish. This kind of fish really exists. TSK, even after fishing for half my life, I've never seen this kind of small fish before. Xiao Xian, where did you catch this? I want to go fishing tomorrow. At the normal place. Chu Xian replied nonchalantly. Oh. I want to try tomorrow and see if I can catch some. I'm going to treat these fish right now and we can taste them tomorrow. I'm guessing they'll be very delicious. Uncle Chu Ming had his own method to process the fish. He quickly and confidently scooped out all the waste in the fish's stomachs, steamed them in the pot and added in some spices before sealing them all in a plastic bag. Noel and the next day, Chu Xian drove to the city with his family and walked around the biggest shopping mall in the area. He bought all kinds of things, from furniture and electrical appliances to clothes and accessories. When they finally returned home late in the afternoon, everyone's faces were covered with smiles, and even Xiren held her toys excitedly, running around the house. When Chu Xian brought his gifts over to his uncle's place, the old couple praised Chu Xian happily. For dinner, Uncle Chu Ming cooked many dishes, including 2 different kinds of fish. Beef and lamb dishes also covered the table. Come, try this special dried fish. I took no unnecessary steps, and with my recipe adding in the flavor, the freshness of the fish was completely conserved. Try it. Chu Ming said excitedly, taking out a bowl of dried fish. Okay. Chu Xian extended his chopsticks and took one. Delicious, so delicious. Just as Chu Xian took a bite, his uncle Chu Ming did the same. He thumped the table and shouted in excitement. It really is incredible. Chu Xian's eyes shined. The freshness, spiciness, and numbness filled his mouth, and the more he chewed, the tastier the dried fish became. It didn't have the toughness of normal dried fish, and the taste was all compressed in the fish meat. The dish was hands down the best thing he'd ever eaten. This dried fish is too delicious. You can't smell it, but after you take a bite, your whole mouth is filled with flavor. Yes. Not bad at all. It's much better than the dried fish brother made in the past. You probably can't even get something this good in those fancy restaurants. They spoke and ate non-stop. The fish tasted much better than the ones Chu Xian ate with Jin Sen and Jin Hua at that restaurant the other time. The good taste of the fish is one factor, and Uncle's recipe is another, but the most important factor should still be the natural compression that preserves the freshness of the fish. I wonder if other fish would still taste as good, like abalone or squid. If they all tasted as good as the grenadier anchovies, this would definitely become a famous delicacy very popular among foodies. Then, the future would be. Chapter 69. Aquarama Ornamental Fish and Aquarium Equipment Exhibition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 69. Aquarama Ornamental Fish and Aquarium Equipment Exhibition. Translator. Aristofaniso Editor. For the next few days, Chu Xian stayed home and learned how to make his uncle's dried fish. Although Chu Xian learned the general gist of the process before, he hadn't taken it seriously. The dried fish he made was only average, and his cooking skills couldn't match up at all to his uncle's. Dried fish needed 2 main components: the special recipe and the step-by-step treatment procedure. The special recipe was homemade, and only Chu Ming knew how to make it. He had been improving his recipe every year over the last 20 years. The unique thing about his recipe was its taste. Under normal circumstances, the flavor of dried fish encompassed 3 major tastes: saltiness, spiciness, and numbness, but Chu Ming added a twist to his fish and included 4 new flavors. A peppery numbness, a spicy numbness, a cool sourness, and a tomato flavor. Each of the flavors prepared the fish in a unique and delicious way. When Chu Xian expressed a desire to learn how to make dried fish, Chu Ming didn't hold back. He passed on his secret 4-flavor recipe and taught Chu Xian the whole process. After a few days of learning, even though Chu Xian hadn't learned much about cooking normal fish, he had gained a certain grasp on the techniques of making dried fish. Ho. Around 8 in the evening, Chu Xian returned to the riverbank and found an empty spot with no one around. He brought out some cooking equipment from his car and lit some firewood. He controlled a carp, crucian, and chub and gathered them together with the 2 abalone and several squids he bought the previous day. The abalone and squid were already prepared. Chu Xian compressed 0.1 kilograms of abalones into the size of a bird egg and stuffed them with seasoning. Chu Ming's dried fish could be cooked in several ways. They could be steamed, stir-fried, or boiled, but each method was increasingly complicated. If you wanted to boil the dried fish, you needed to add all kinds of other fish to the water to make it tastier. His options were limited and he could only steam the fish for now. He had to wrap the entire fish to preserve its taste and allow the seasoning to spread throughout the meat. Steaming wasn't as good as the other options in terms of producing flavor, but even with the worst option, Chu Ming's dried fish was still delicious. When the water was boiled, Chu Xian placed the abalone and squid in the pot. He started preparing the carp and other fish he caught, compressing them and removing all the bones with his remolding ability. He sliced up the fish into thin pieces and poured in the other ingredients before sealing it all up in a Ziploc bag. Technically speaking, this wasn't the proper method to make dried fish, but it was fine since at the very least, he compressed the meat and most importantly, shortened the curing time. After 15 minutes, he took out the steamed dried fish and unwrapped it. All the seasoning had melted into the meat. He took out one of the small abalones and took a bite. CSI. With that one bite, intense flavor filled his mouth and nose. Actually, abalone didn't really have any flavor or special qualities aside from its particular freshness, and its taste mostly depended on the seasoning. Chu Xian prepared one with the peppery numbness and the other with the tomato seasoning. The fresh and numbing taste filled his mouth and made his tongue dance. The numbing feeling was amazing. Incredible. Everything I've eaten before was garbage. Chu Xian thought, reaching for the other abalone ball. The tomato flavor isn't too good. It doesn't suit the abalone. The peppery numbness, spicy numbness, and refreshing sourness should suit abalone better, Chu Xian thought, reaching for the squid. It was usually better to stir-fry squid, but for the sake of convenience, Chu Xian steamed it as well. He also used 2 different types of seasoning for the squid, the spicy numbness and the refreshing sourness. Holy sh***. Refreshing. So refreshing. Chu Xian clicked his tongue, stuffing his mouth full with slice after slice. The soul-stirring spicy numbness and the stimulating sour freshness filled his mouth. The slices were a beautiful chewy texture, filled with an indescribable and unique fragrance. No exotic delicacies could be better than this. I just wonder how carp and other fish taste, Chu Xian thought after he finished the squid, glancing at the time. The salting and curing process took at least 24 hours, and the more time you let it sit, the tastier the meat would be, but since he sliced the fish, the process was much faster. To pass the time, Chu Xian called Xiaoying and the 2 talked for a very long time. 2 hours later, Chu Xian took out the fish slices and put them into the steaming pot. Not bad, very chewy. The taste is refreshing but not as good as the abalone or squid. In the end, carps and chubs are just ordinary fish, and some countries don't even consider them edible. It'll taste better if I use better seafood. Chu Xian thought to himself as he ate the fish slices. Of course, this not-so-tasty flavor was in comparison to the abalone, squid, and grenadier anchovies. His carps and chubs still tasted much better than his uncle's dried fish. At around 11 p.m., Chu Xian collected his things and let a carp into his net before hopping into his car and driving home. In the following days, Chu Xian wandered around the village during the day and was greeted enthusiastically by many of the villagers. At night, he went to the riverbank and visited the sunken boat several times. The huge Chinese sturgeon was already gone without a trace, and even after digging around the sunken boat a couple more times, Chu Xian turned up empty-handed. His days were spent in a happy, leisurely freedom, catching fish and cooking delicious food. On the fourth day after coming home, Chu Xian picked up an unexpected call. "Xiao Xian, your shop has become really famous these days. Your method of advertising is very impressive." A cheerful voice came out of the phone, putting a smile on Chu Xian's face. "Big brother Gene, I'm a victim. They tried to attack my name first." "Heh, you sly fox. You really seized a great opportunity here." Big brother Gene praised him sincerely. Is Big brother Gene just calling to congratulate me?" Chu Xian laughed. "There's something else, and it's good news for you," Jin Hua said. "The 18th Aquarama Ornamental Fish and Aquarium Equipment Exhibition is going to be held in our Jinghai city. Are you interested?" "Aquarama?" Chu Xian said with a slight pause. He heard of this Aquarama before. He heard it was an organization founded by the Singaporean government in 1989, and it was a gathering of the top professionals in the aquarium business. It was considered the world's best and most prestigious ornamental fish competition. Every aquarium exhibition attracted many ornamental fish enthusiasts and many big fish farm owners. The occasion brought together countless precious ornamental fish in one place, and many rich people came with the intention of bringing some home. The price of any champion fish was never lower than 1 million, and famous fish like the arowana or certain types of koi and flowerhorn fish could even reach 4 or 5 million RMB. Chapter 70. The Mo Crocodiles Worth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 70. The Mo Crocodiles Worth. Translator. Aristofaniso Editor. Karen_yes. Of course I'm interested. Chu Xian replied decisively. The Aquarama was an important opportunity to promote business for every ornamental fish seller. In one of the competitions in a previous exhibition, the Japanese koi farm Saikui entered and won first place with a koi fish named Lulan. They immediately sold the fish for 20 million renminbi. From that one event, the Saikui farm gained fame throughout the world and attracted many customers. Good. The exhibition will be held on the 1st of next month and will last 3 days. Let's go together then. Jin Hua said. Okay, big brother Jin. We should probably get there a day early. Chu Xian said eagerly. After exchanging a couple more words, Chu Xian ended the call and checked the date. It's the 26th already. I should get my things ready when I get back tomorrow. At lunch Chu Xian told his parents about the event, and although they didn't want him to leave, they understood that their son had his own business now and couldn't stay with them all the time. In the afternoon, Chu Xian took his sister and her husband to the bank. He transferred 1 million RMB to the couple, Chu Li and Lu Yun. With the speed he was making money at, 1 million RMB wasn't much, and in order to be a good brother, he felt he should give them at least that much to help them start their own business. That night, Chu Xian stayed home and spent time with his family, talking and laughing and drinking with his dad. In the middle of the night, Chu Xian woke up suddenly. At Feng Tai Lake, the still and desolate night was disturbed by occasional splashes of jumping fish and cries of cats and dogs. The moon hung high in the sky and watched over the lake as a group of young men carried flashlights and rough iron poles in plain sight, making no effort to hide. Chin bro, I heard that guy spent more than 100,000 renminbi on renovations. What if they figure out we're the ones who damaged it? One of the young men said, evidently worried. Don't worry. Nobody will find out, and even if they do, they wouldn't dare tell anyone. Qin Jiyu said with a dark expression. After his family's fish was stolen, his father, Qin Dehai, was always upset and often yelled at him, making the entire family miserable. Jiyu had long suspected that Chu Xian was somehow linked to the stolen fish, and his suspicions fanned the flames of his old hatred. He decided now was a good time to get revenge. Finally, we're here. TSK, TSK. I don't know what kind of ornamental fish this guy's farming that needs such high walls, one of the young men said. F*** his wall. Just break the lock. Qin Jiyu said, signaling to the young man beside him. The man nodded. He lifted his axe and smashed the lock. Ping! Ping! The sound of his axe hitting the lock over and over echoed throughout the area, and dogs barked in reply in the distance. Qin Jiyu frowned. Be quiet. All right, brother Qin. But the lock is too sturdy. The young man said bitterly, trying to use less strength to strike the lock. The noise echoed inside the building, and in one of the fish ponds, a pair of bright eyes opened. The Mo crocodile stirred, crawled out of the water and made its way towards the entrance. Chu Xian opened his eyes the same moment the Mo crocodile did, already controlling the creature. He made it slip out under the wall through a drainpipe and crawl quickly towards the entrance where the group of young men was still bashing the lock. When Chu Xian was planning out the renovations, he wanted to prevent just this kind of situation from happening, so he got a solid, high-quality door for security reasons. If these kids planned on breaking and entering, they would need a lot more power. The Mo crocodile slowed as it neared the group, staring with cold eyes and a slightly open mouth as it crept forward. F******, what kind of lock is this? Why's it so hard? Qin Jiyu cursed, kicking the door before grabbing the axe and smashing it into the metal. Ping! The loud strike echoed throughout the area, and the dogs in the area all woke up and barked once more. A couple of the surrounding house lights lit up and people peered out their doors and windows. Brother Qin, let's be quiet. If we're too loud, we'll attract too much attention, and then, one of the young men said, looking around worriedly. He continued, but suddenly his eyes gaped wide as he retreated, pointing and stuttering. Brother Qin. Brother Qin. Monster. Monster. What F*** king monster? Qin Jiyu swore angrily, turning to look in the direction the young man was pointing in. Ping, ping, ping. Jiyu turned and his anger left him as he stumbled backward. A meter-long monster crawled towards him, and a pair of reptilian eyes shined in the dark. The creature lunged. F******. What the F******? Qin Jiyu yelled in surprise, hastily falling to the side to dodge its attack. The other young men looked around and dashed away in all directions. F****** me, why are you all so cowardly? Chu Xian thought speechlessly. He made the creature lunge again. Hulu hulu. Qin Jiyu looked back at the terrifying sound as he stumbled away, turning on his flashlight and revealing the crocodile-like creature. He became even more afraid. Running in terror without any sense of direction, he tripped on a rock. Ah! Help me! Qin Jiyu cried out as the Mo crocodile dashed towards him. In a panic, he pushed against the ground, rushing to stand up. Hee. The Mo crocodile opened its mouth coldly and pushed down with its limbs, jumping forward and biting Jiyu's thigh. Ah! Help! Jiyu screamed, falling to the ground again. His cries of terror spread throughout the district. The young men he came with turned around, they hesitated, faces filled with fear. Kaka! The sound of breaking bones filled the air. Chu Xian was very satisfied with the biting force of the Mo croc. Even though it wasn't as strong as a real crocodile, it could fight people very easily. One light after another turned on before Chu Xian took one last, mocking glance at Jiyu as he rolled around in pain. He then turned away and dove back into the shadows.